I once watched a young merchant in the marketplace of Jerusalem refuse a bag of gold coins. The crowd gasped. His family stood in disbelief. The wealthy benefactor who offered the gift turned red with embarrassment, but this young man, barely 20 years old, simply bowed and said, "I cannot carry what was not meant for my shoulders." The crowd dispersed, calling him foolish. His family scolded him for 3 days. But I saw something they did not see. I saw wisdom wearing the uncomfortable garments of youth. You see, for 60 years, I have studied the sacred texts, and one truth echoes through every scroll, every commentary, every whispered teaching passed from master to student. The hand that knows when to close is wiser than the hand that stays perpetually open. In my 8 decades of walking this earth, I have witnessed more lives destroyed by what people accepted than by what they were denied. This is the great blindness of our age. We think abundance means saying yes to everything. We mistake openness for wisdom. We confuse the inability to refuse with spiritual maturity. But let me tell you what the ancient sages understood and what the modern world has forgotten. There is a gateway to your inner sanctuary, and you are the gatekeeper. Everything that enters changes the climate within. Every object you allow through that gate carries not just physical mass, but spiritual weight. Every opportunity that crosses your threshold brings with it an entire ecosystem of consequences you cannot yet see. The Talmud teaches us that the wise person foresees the hidden and acts accordingly. The fool sees only the surface and wonders later why his house is filled with chaos. When I was a young student, barely past my bar mitzvah, my teacher, Rabbi Mendel, told me a story I have never forgotten. There was once a villager who lived in such poverty that his children went to bed hungry more nights than not. One winter morning, a stranger appeared at his door with a wagon full of goods, fine clothing, preserves and delicacies, tools the villager had long needed. "I heard of your struggles," the stranger said warmly. "Please take whatever you need, no cost. Consider it a blessing from heaven." The villager's wife wept with joy. His children danced, but the villager himself stood silent, studying the stranger's eyes. After a long moment, he asked a simple question, "And what is it you want from me?" The stranger laughed and waved his hand dismissively. "Nothing, nothing at all. Just your friendship. Perhaps I will visit from time to time. Perhaps you will speak favorably of me to your neighbors. Such small things." The villager thanked him and closed the door with the wagon still outside. His wife was furious. His children could not understand. But 3 months later, that same stranger was arrested. He had been using his generosity to create a network of people who felt indebted to him, people who would lie for him in court, people who would hide his stolen goods, people who would turn blind eyes to his crimes. Every family who accepted his gifts found themselves tangled in his web. Every house that opened its door found darkness had followed the bread and clothing inside. But the villager who asked one question and closed his door, his house remained his own. This is what I want you to understand today. Not everything that approaches you with an open hand comes from the source of light. The world is filled with gifts that are actually invoices, favors that are actually chains, opportunities that are actually traps dressed in the clothing of blessing. And unless you develop the holy ability to discern, to pause, to question, to sometimes say, "This is not for me," you will spend your life accepting burdens you were never meant to carry and wondering why your soul feels so heavy. Let me be very clear about what I am teaching you. I am not speaking about suspicion. I am not advocating for a heart that closes itself to human kindness or refuses the legitimate goodness that flows through this world. The Creator designed this universe to operate on generosity. The sun gives light without asking for payment. The rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. The earth opens its hands and provides seed and harvest. True, giving authentic generosity is woven into the very fabric of creation. We are meant to receive. We are meant to give. This is the dance of existence, but we are also meant to be wise. There is an ancient principle in Kabbalah called the concept of the broken vessels. When the infinite light of the Creator poured into the finite vessels of creation, some of those vessels could not contain the intensity, and they shattered. Why? Because not every container is meant to hold every substance. Not every vessel is designed for every purpose. And you are a vessel. Your life, your home, your heart, your time, your energy, these are vessels. And the question is not whether you should receive, but what you were designed to contain. Some things will shatter you if you try to hold them. I have seen brilliant students accept positions of power they were not spiritually prepared to manage. And I watched those positions slowly erode their character. I have seen humble families accept wealth that arrived through questionable means, and I observed how that wealth poisoned 3 generations. I have seen pure-hearted souls accept relationships with people who spoke beautiful words but carried dark intentions, and I witnessed the light slowly drain from their eyes. In every case, the destruction began the moment they said yes to something their inner wisdom was screaming at them to refuse. The art of the closed hand is not about fear. It is about alignment. It is about understanding that your life has a direction, a purpose, a sacred architecture that the Infinite One is trying to build through you. And anything that does not serve that architecture, no matter how attractive it appears, no matter how many other people are reaching for it, is a distraction at best and a demolition at worst. Let me share with you the 5 gates through which nothing impure should pass. These are not rules to make your life smaller. These are protective boundaries to make your life sustainable, powerful, and aligned with your deepest truth. The first gate is the gate of allegiance. There are objects, traditions, and practices in this world that were created to serve powers that are not the source of life. I am not speaking about cultural differences or aesthetic preferences. I am speaking about things that were intentionally designed as bridges to spiritual realms that oppose the light. The ancient texts are crystal clear on this matter. Do not bring into your dwelling that which was consecrated to the darkness. This is not superstition. This is territorial awareness. When our ancestors were brought into the land of promise, they were given explicit instructions. Destroy the altars of the nations that came before. Tear down their sacred poles. burn their carved images. Why such harsh commands? Because the Infinite One understands something we often forget. Physical objects can become anchoring points for invisible realities. When you place an object in your home that was created to honor a false power, you are not simply decorating. You are making a statement about what you allow to have influence in your private sanctuary. I remember a woman who came to me many years ago. She was a new believer, just beginning to understand the ways of the Torah. Her grandmother had passed away and left her a beautiful amulet, an intricate piece with symbols she did not recognize. It was valuable, both monetarily and sentimentally. But something about it disturbed her sleep. She asked me what to do. I asked her a single question. Do you know what those symbols represent? She admitted she did not. So I suggested she research them. When she returned to me 3 days later, her face was pale. The symbols were used in rituals to invoke protection from spirits her grandmother had feared and attempted to appease. This grandmother was a good woman, I told her, but she was operating from fear, not from faith in the one who is the true protector. The amulet represents a covenant with fear. You do not need to honor that covenant. You have a new covenant now. She took the amulet to a river and released it into the water. That night, she slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Sometimes honoring our ancestors means not continuing their mistakes. Your home is meant to be a mikdash me at a miniature sanctuary. The atmosphere within your walls should reflect the reality you want to live in. Light and shadow cannot occupy the same space. If you know that an object was used to bow before powers that are not the highest power, you are under no obligation to preserve it. Sentimentality is not stronger than spiritual clarity. Thank the person, honor the gesture, but protect your gate. The second gate is the gate of inner peace. This one is subtle, and many people miss it because it does not announce itself with obvious signs. There will be moments when someone extends an offer to you, a business partnership, a generous gift, an invitation into a new circle. On paper, everything looks perfect. The numbers make sense. The opportunity seems legitimate. The people involved appear sincere, but inside your chest, there is a whisper that says something is not aligned. You cannot explain it. You have no evidence, but you feel it. A tightness, a hesitation, a withdrawal of ease. Most people ignore this whisper. They call it anxiety. They call it overthinking. They call it irrational fear. They tell themselves to be grateful, to be trusting, to stop being so suspicious. And they say yes when their soul is saying, wait. I want to tell you something that took me 30 years to fully understand. That whisper is not your enemy. That inner discomfort is not a malfunction of your psychology. It is the voice of the Infinite One speaking through your spirit. The sages teach us that the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, guides us not only through scriptures and teachers, but also through the still small voice within. When the Creator wants to protect you from a trap you cannot yet see, He does not always send an angel with a flaming sword. Sometimes He simply removes your peace. Peace is meant to be your referee, your internal compass that tells you whether you are walking in alignment or stepping off the path. In the language of our ancestors, the word shalom means far more than the absence of conflict. It means completeness, wholeness, everything in its proper place. When you are about to make a decision that will fracture your wholeness, even if you cannot yet see how your peace will withdraw, it will step back, and you will feel it. The question is, will you listen? I once knew a young man who was offered a position in a company that would triple his income. Everything looked extraordinary. The contract was fair. The work was in his field. His family was excited, but he could not sleep the night after the offer came. Something felt wrong, though he could not name it. He came to me, troubled, thinking perhaps he was self-sabotaging, afraid of success. I told him, "You are not required to accept every open door. Pray for 3 days. If the peace does not return, decline respectfully and trust that the Infinite One sees what you do not." He declined the position. His family was confused. His friends called him foolish. But 8 months later, that company was exposed in a massive fraud scandal. Every executive was investigated. Had he accepted that role, his name would have been tangled in a legal nightmare for years. His lack of peace had been a divine warning, and he had the wisdom to heed it. Let me tell you the truth that will save you years of regret. You do not owe anyone an explanation for why you are saying no. You do not have to defend your inner knowing to people who are operating purely from external logic. It is enough to say, "I appreciate this very much, but it is not the right fit for me at this time." Protect your gate. Honor your peace. The Infinite One gave you that sensing ability for a reason. The third gate is the Gate of Lineage and Inheritance. This teaching requires great sensitivity because it touches on family memory and honor. We are commanded to respect our fathers and mothers. We are taught to cherish the legacy of those who came before us. But we are also called to walk in newness of life, to break cycles that need breaking, to refuse to carry forward into our generation the spiritual confusion of previous ones. Many families pass down objects from generation to generation: furniture, jewelry, books, photographs. Most of these items are beautiful connectors to our history and should be treasured, but sometimes woven into that inheritance are objects that were used in practices that stood in opposition to the way of the Torah. Amulets used in superstition, items employed in rituals to appease spirits, tools from traditions that sought power from sources other than the source of all. If you truly know that a specific heirloom was used by your grandmother in spiritism, or by your great uncle in secret societies that practice dark arts, you are not required to keep it. Honoring your family does not mean preserving their errors. You can love the person and refuse the practice. You can cherish the memory and release the object. When the children of Israel were brought out of Egypt and into a new identity, the Infinite One commanded them to leave behind the gods of Egypt and destroy the idols of Canaan. Why? Because their future could not be built on the altars of the past. What you keep in your house signals what you are aligned with in your spirit. You are no longer defined by the mistakes or misunderstandings of your earthly lineage. You have been grafted into a new family tree, one rooted in the covenant of light. This does not require drama or public declarations. It simply requires quiet, firm action. Take the object that carries the wrong spiritual weight. Thank it for what it represented to someone you loved, and then release it. Burn it if you must. Bury it. Dispose of it in whatever way brings closure. You are not dishonoring your ancestors. You are protecting your descendants. I once counseled a man whose father had been involved in Freemasonry and left behind an entire collection of ceremonial items. The man felt torn. These were his father's treasures. But every time he looked at them, he felt a heaviness. I asked him, "Do you want your son to inherit this heaviness? Do you want this weight to pass to the fourth generation?" He wept, and then he built a fire. Sometimes the most honoring thing you can do for your family line is to be the one who says, "This stops with me." The fourth gate is the gate of integrity and righteous gain. The ancient proverbs make this abundantly clear. Wealth gained through injustice will not endure. Treasures acquired by wickedness bring no true profit. There is a hidden cost attached to every ill-gotten gain, and that cost will eventually come due often in ways you did not anticipate and cannot control. If you know that a gift being offered to you was obtained through corruption, through fraud, through the exploitation of the vulnerable, you must not receive it. Even if you personally did not commit the wrong, if you knowingly benefit from it, you become a participant in the injustice. You stain your hands with what you allow into your possession. There is a story in our scriptures about a man named Achan. The people had been given clear instructions not to take certain plundered items from a conquered city. Those items were to be set apart, consecrated for destruction or for the sacred treasury. But Achan saw a beautiful robe and bars of silver and gold. He desired them. He took them. He hid them in his tent. And because of that act of taking what was forbidden, the entire nation suffered defeat in their next battle. One man's greed for illicit gain opened a door for disaster to touch an entire community. The principle here is profound. Not all money is the same. Not all provision carries the same spiritual quality. You can have two identical coins in appearance, but if one was earned through honest labor and the other through theft, they carry entirely different weights in the unseen realm. The Infinite One is not impressed by abundance that was built on the backs of the oppressed or financed through deception. I have watched people accept lavish gifts from individuals they knew were corrupt, telling themselves, "Well, I did not commit the crime, so why should I not enjoy the benefit?" And I have watched those same people wonder years later why their own finances never seem to stabilize, why there is always a leak they cannot locate, why provision comes and then mysteriously vanishes. Contaminated gain contaminates everything it touches. It spreads like a stain. It is far better to live modestly with a clear conscience than to surround yourself with luxury that whispers accusations in the night. The true blessing of the Infinite One enriches and adds no sorrow. It does not require you to compromise. It does not demand your silence in the face of wrongdoing. It does not ask you to become an accomplice to evil in exchange for comfort. There will come a day when someone offers you something valuable, and you will know in your heart that it was obtained through means that violate justice. In that moment, you will face a choice. Do I enjoy a temporary benefit, or do I preserve my long-term integrity? Choose integrity. Always choose integrity. What you lose in immediate gain, you preserve in spiritual authority. And spiritual authority, true standing before the Infinite One, is worth more than all the gold in every vault on earth. The fifth gate is the gate of emotional freedom and forward movement. Not everything that holds sentimental value is worth keeping. There are objects that function as anchors tying you to seasons of pain you were meant to leave behind. Letters from someone who destroyed your sense of self-worth. Gifts from a relationship that taught you to shrink and hide. Items that every time you see them pull you back into grief, shame, or trauma you have already walked through. The scriptures teach us to forget what lies behind and strain forward to what lies ahead. This is not about denying your history. This is about refusing to build a monument to your pain. Healing often requires a physical release. You cannot move into your future while clutching the artifacts of your prison. I remember a woman who kept a box of letters from a man who had manipulated and emotionally tormented her for years. She had finally found the strength to leave that relationship, but she could not bring herself to destroy the letters. She told herself they were a reminder never to fall into that pattern again. But every time she saw that box, she felt the old shame rising. She was free from the man, but still tethered to the memory. I asked her a simple question. If the Infinite One wanted to bring you a new love, a healthy love, would that person feel comfortable knowing this box sits in your closet? Would you feel fully available for a new beginning while maintaining a shrine to an old ending? She sat in silence for a long while. Then she took the box and burned every letter. She told me later that something broke open inside her that day. She had been living in a museum of her wounds, and she finally gave herself permission to walk out. Not every memory deserves preservation. Not every pain needs a keepsake. If an object keeps you emotionally handcuffed to a version of yourself that the Infinite One is trying to resurrect you from, it does not deserve space in your home. Throw it away. Give it away. Set it on fire if that is what brings you closure. The Creator wants you free, not curating a gallery of everything that ever hurt you. This is not about erasing your story. This is about choosing which chapters you will reread and which ones you will close. You are allowed to move forward. You are allowed to release. You are allowed to step into a new season without dragging every piece of wreckage from the old one. Now we come to the final gate, and this may be the most critical of all. It is the gate of the soul itself, the boundary that protects your very essence. There are gifts in this world that are not gifts at all. They are hooks, bribes, temptations disguised as opportunities. They come with hidden conditions that, if accepted, will require you to surrender something far more valuable than what you are gaining. The enemy of the soul, the great deceiver, rarely tempts people with things that are obviously evil. He does not approach you with a contract that says, sign here and lose your integrity. Instead, he offers you something you genuinely want: a promotion, access to influential circles, financial security, social status. And then quietly, almost as an afterthought, he adds the condition. All of this can be yours, but you will need to stay silent about that injustice. You will need to compromise that principle. You will need to look the other way. just this once. Our sacred texts tell the story of a test in the wilderness. The tempter took the anointed one to a high place and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their glory. "All of this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down to me." It was a spectacular offer. Immediate power, instant influence, total authority. But it came with a single condition that made the entire offer worthless. The price was worship, allegiance, the surrender of the soul. The response was immediate and unequivocal. "Away from me. I will worship and serve only the highest one." No negotiation, no consideration. The answer was no. This is the wisdom we must carry. Your soul is not for sale. Your integrity is not negotiable. Your divine calling is more valuable than any temporary advantage. There will be moments when someone offers you exactly what you have been praying for, but asks for your character in exchange. Walk away. Every single time, walk away. I have seen people accept promotions that required them to lie. I have seen them take financial opportunities that demanded they betray their values. I have seen them enter relationships that asked them to become smaller, quieter, less aligned with their truth. And in every case, what they gained in the short term cost them something in the long term that could not be measured in currency or status. It cost them their peace, their self-respect, their ability to look in the mirror without flinching. The ancient proverb asks the question that echoes through eternity. What does it profit a person to gain the entire world but forfeit their soul? The answer is simple. It profits nothing, less than nothing. Because a soul lost is a life wasted, no matter how much that life accumulated in the process. Let me tell you what true blessing looks like. True blessing from the Infinite One does not require you to violate your conscience. It does not demand that you twist the truth or turn away from justice. It does not ask you to become someone you are ashamed of in order to receive it. The blessings of heaven enrich without adding sorrow. They expand you without corrupting you. They elevate you without requiring you to step on others to rise. If an opportunity demands that you compromise your core values, it is not an opportunity. It is a test. And the correct answer to that test is always no. Reject it completely. Reject it immediately. Protect the gate of your soul as you would protect the life of your child. Because in truth, that is exactly what you are doing. Now let me bring all of this wisdom into a single truth that you can carry with you. The hand that knows when to remain closed is not a hand of fear. It is a hand of discernment. It is a hand that understands that not everything offered is meant for you. Not everything available is beneficial. Not everything possible is wise. We live in a world that worships the open hand, the unlimited yes, the refusal to refuse. We are told that setting boundaries makes us rigid, that saying no makes us ungrateful, that discernment is just another word for judgment. But this is a lie that leads to bondage. The truth is that the ability to refuse is one of the clearest signs of inner freedom. A person who cannot say no is not free. They are enslaved to the opinions of others, to social pressure, to the fear of disappointing people who do not have their best interest at heart. The gatekeeper stands at the entrance, not to keep out everything, but to keep out what does not belong. Your life has a purpose. Your home has a spiritual atmosphere. Your heart has a capacity. And you are the only one responsible for guarding what enters. Not your family, not your friends, not the well-meaning voices around you. You, when you accept something into your life that the Infinite One never intended you to carry, you are not being humble. You're being careless. You're not being gracious. You're being undiscerning. And there is a cost to that carelessness, a price that may not be visible immediately, but will eventually manifest in your peace, your clarity, your ability to hear the still, small voice that guides you. Conversely, when you refuse something that looks like a blessing but carries a hidden burden, you are not being paranoid. You are being wise. You are not missing out. You are protecting what matters most. And the Infinite One honors that kind of vigilance. He honors the person who values alignment over abundance, integrity over opportunity, peace over possession. I am 83 years old. I have lived through wars and exiles, celebrations and sorrows. I have counseled thousands of souls, listened to countless stories of triumph and tragedy. And if there is one pattern I have seen repeated across every generation, it is this: the people who live with the deepest peace are not the ones who said yes to everything. They are the ones who learn the sacred art of the closed hand. They are the ones who understood that true wealth is not measured by how much you can accumulate, but by how much you can wisely refuse. So I leave you with this. Go back to your home. Look around. Ask yourself, is there anything here that I accepted out of obligation, out of fear of offending someone, out of inability to refuse? Is there anything in my possession that steals my peace when I look at it? Is there anything I am holding on to that keeps me anchored to a version of myself I am trying to leave behind? If the answer is yes, you know what to do. Release it. Not with drama, not with announcement, but with quiet, firm intention. Thank it for whatever lesson it taught you and let it go. Make space. Create room. Clear the atmosphere. Because the Infinite One has things He wants to bring into your life, blessings that are truly aligned with your purpose opportunities, that will expand you without corrupting you. But He cannot place new wine in old wineskins. He cannot fill a house that is already cluttered with what does not belong. The closed hand is not a symbol of scarcity. It is a symbol of sovereignty. It says, I am the gatekeeper of my life. I choose what enters. I decide what stays. And I will not surrender that authority to social pressure, to guilt, to fear, or to the illusion that every open door is a divine invitation. Walk forward with discernment. Live with boundaries. Practice the holy art of refusal, and watch as your life becomes lighter, clearer, more aligned with the truth of who you were created to be. This is not just wisdom. This is survival. This is how you protect the sanctuary within. This is how you honor the gift of your one precious life. May you have the courage to close your hand when closing is required. May you have the wisdom to know the difference between a blessing and a burden. And may you walk in such alignment with the Infinite One that everything you accept draws you closer to your purpose, and everything you refuse protects the path you were meant to walk. The gate is yours to guard. Guard it well.